Finance prohibited personal use child care exception. Reported from the Committee on Privileges and Elections, and there is a floor substitute and a floor amendment.
Senator from Eastern Fairfax, Senator Servo.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I think I'm yielding to the senator from Fauquier.
Senator from Fauquier, Senator Vogel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion on House Bill 1952 and speaking to the motion.
Senators, the floor.
I'd like to move, Mr. President, because we have, as you mentioned, a floor amendment, and it's a significant amount of significant change here and policy change that we are about to debate. And I think, given the fact that we also have a parallel commission bill that was passed by this body, that we would be wise to vote, and I would make this motion, to recommit this to the Privileges and Elections Committee. While the commission bill is already passed, which will study the exact same issue, this bill, as it is before us, will create a whole new body of law that I believe at this juncture will be quite onerous. And the patron, and I have had a discussion about this, and I think the patron's changes to this bill are well-intentioned, and certainly I think are a step in the right direction, given that it fleshes out a process, an enforcement mechanism, but I think it is a rather unwieldy at this point, and we would be very wise to consider this in P&E further. So with that, I would move that we recommit the bill to P&E. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank the Senator. Senator from Eastern Fairfax, Senator Servo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking to the motion.
Senators, the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, I think you all have had this bill now in front of you a few days, and so you've seen the text. The bill that came out of committee is quite different than the bill that was considered by the committee. And it reflects, I think, the work product that was done, I believe, in the House last year, largely, with a few changes that we made. You know, it's definitely an area I think that we have to look at. I believe 47 states have prohibitions on the personal use of funds, and there's a strong belief, at least I have a strong belief, and I believe much of my caucus, I think a lot of us here believe that we need to have some more rules about, or clearer rules about prohibitions on the personal use of campaign funds. There's all kinds of difficulties, though, in the wording. I mean, there's a lot of words here that haven't been vetted in committee. The bill creates a process by which these complaints would be evaluated, not in courts, but by the State Board of Elections. I know there's also some concerns about the bandwidth of the State Board of Elections to deal with this, the lack of consequences for false complaints. And coincidentally, the House has this study pending where these same issues can be vetted. I mean, from my perspective, the bill the sub that you have in front of you, coupled with an additional amendment the senator from Arlington was going to make, would have sort of accomplished the same result as a re-referral to committee, because we have this reenactment clause on it, plus a referral to the study. It just seems to me like these are flip sides of the same choice, the way it's postured right now. I know the patron of the bill would prefer to see his bill go back to the House, and he could consider whether to put it in conference or let it ride to the governor at that point. That's his preference. Personally, I'm comfortable with that. I know there's other people that would prefer the senator from Fauquier's approach here, and I guess it's just going to be up to the body as to which way we proceed, Mr. President. But this is definitely an issue that we have to look at and do something about, and I think we're lucky that the House Delegate Bulova sent over this study to look at this over the next 12 months, because that'll, I think, provide a good environment for this issue to be fully vetted, to get a work product that comes out that doesn't have any unforeseen consequences and has been fully vetted in public, which this bill right now really has not been, at least this session and in this body.
Thank the senator. For what purpose, Senator from Arlington? Senator Favola rise.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking to the motion.
Senators, the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just ask, I guess my motion really is to ask the senator from Fauquier if she would yield for a question.
Senator, yield.
Mr. President, I'm happy to yield.
Senator Yields, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would ask the senator if she would be willing to, in a bipartisan way, co-sign a letter that would actually go to the commission that's being created under the Delegate Bolivar's House Joint Resolution 526. He creates a commission that has both delegates and senators on it. It's supposed to evaluate campaign finance reform in a very broad way. I think there are some specific issues that the senator from Eastern Fairfax raised, and I just want to make sure that the topic of campaign donations continues to move forward, that we can come up with a framework that we can adopt in a bipartisan way, because I think it's a necessary element in a democracy where our constituents demand transparency and accountability.
Senator, the floor.
Mr. President, I would say to the gentlelady, absolutely. And in fact, I mean no harm to the patron in making this motion. This was, in fact, my bill in a previous year. I patroned the same legislation to ban personal use of campaign funds. The critical component here is to actually get it right and not create an environment where we overwhelm the Department of Elections and, in fact, the board with an environment that crushes them with litigious and frivolous complaints that they cannot process. And in this case, I think the amended language actually moves us in the right direction with a framework that's quite helpful. But in the current environment, I'm not confident that we actually have the resources right now to actually manage what this would direct us to undertake right now. And so I would support the gentlelady's notion here that a letter is the right way to go and to encourage the commission to move in this direction. And so with that, Mr. President, I would renew my motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. And with that response, I will support the motion. Thank you.
Thank the senator. For what purpose, Senator from Bath, Senator Deeds rise.
To speak to the motion.
Senator, the floor.
Mr. President, I'm not one to stand in front of a moving train. But the reality is that for many years, our constituents have been asking us. They've read in the Washington Post stories of people who misuse their campaign funds, who use the funds for personal purposes. It's been embarrassing for all of us. And frankly, the majority of people on this floor, in my view, probably likely agree that we should limit the use of campaign or not limit, but prohibit the use of campaign funds for personal use. The bill that left the committee was fairly ambiguous. Senator Servel's floor substitute, I think, brought some definition to the subject. I'm sorry that there are many people that feel that we can't go forward with this, but I understand it's up to the will of this body. I would ask you not to send the bill back to committee.
Thank the senator. Do any other senators wish to be heard regarding the motion? Seeing none, the question is, shall the House Bill 1952 be recommitted to the Committee on Privileges and Elections? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1952 is recommitted to the Committee on Privileges and Elections.